Assalamualaikum and greetings to the audience, especially our lecturer Dr. Aziz bin Jamal. We are from BA2653B. We'll be presenting topic about the respiratory system. Before that, I would like to introduce the members of this group, which are, my name is FARAH SYAZWINA binti ABDUL NURSHAFINAZ binti SALLEH, SYAMIMI binti Muhammad Nur, ANDIEPOI ALENDA Alexander, and SYAZATUL AINI binti JAMIL. First, let's begin with the medical terms related to anatomy. In the respiratory system, it consists of the nasal cavity, moved to the pharynx, also known as the throat, which is divided into three parts: the nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. Next is the epiglottis, larynx, also known as the voice box, trachea or windpipe that connect bronchus to the lung. The bronchi, also known as the primary bronchi, divided and subdivides into increasingly smaller bronchioles, which are the smallest branch of the bronchi. At the end of each bronchioles, there are clusters of very small sacs called alveoli. This consists of alveolar ducts and alveolar sacs, and lastly under the lung where there is diaphragm. Next, I'm going to share about the upper respiratory tract consists of the nose, nostrils, mouth, pharynx, epiglottis, and larynx. Nostril air enters the body through the nose and passes through the nasal cavity, which is the interior portion of the nose. The nostrils are the external openings of the nose. It consists of the nasal septum, is a wall of cartilage that divides the nose into two equal sections. A septum is a wall that separates two chambers. Next, cilia, the thin hairs located just inside the nostrils, filter incoming air to remove debris. Then, mucous membranes line the nose. This specialized tissue also line the digestive, reproductive, and urinary system, as well as other parts of the respiratory system. The fourth one, mucus, is a salivary secretion produced by the mucous membranes that protects and lubricates these tissues. In the nose, mucus helps moisten, warm, and filter the air as it enters. Mucus is the secretion that flows from the tissue. And the last one is the olfactory receptors, are nerve endings that act as the receptors for the sense of smell. They are also important to the sense of taste. These receptors are located in the mucous membrane in the upper part of the nasal cavity. Next, the tonsil. The tonsil and adenoids are part of the lymphatic system. The tonsil, also called the palatine tonsil, are located at the back of the mouth. The adenoids, also called the nasopharyngeal tonsils, are higher up behind the nose and the roof of the mouth. Next is the paranasal sinuses. The paranasal sinuses, which are air-filled cavities lined with the mucous membrane, are located in the bones of the skull. A sinus can be a sac or cavity in any organ or tissue. However, the term sinus most commonly refers to the paranasal sinuses. The sinuses are connected to the nasal cavity via short ducts. The four pairs of paranasal sinuses are located on either side of the nose and are named for the bones in which they are located. For example, the frontal sinuses are located in the frontal bone just above the eyebrows. Second one, the sphenoid sinuses, which are located in the sphenoid bone behind the eye and under the pituitary gland, are close to the optic nerves. Third one, the maxillary sinuses, which are the largest of the paranasal sinuses, are located in the maxillary bones under the eyes. Lastly, the ethmoid sinuses, which are located in the ethmoid bones between the nose and the eyes, are irregularly shaped air cells that are separated from the orbital, which is eye cavity, by only a thin layer of bone. The pharynx, which is commonly known as the throat, receives the air after it passes through the nose or mouth, as well as food. The pharynx is made up of three divisions, which are: the nasopharynx is posterior to the nasal cavity and continuous downward to behind the mouth. Secondly, the oropharynx is the portion that is visible when looking into the mouth. And the last is the laryngopharynx, is also shared by both the respiratory and digestive system. Air, food, and fluids continue to downward to the openings of the esophagus and trachea, where air enters the trachea and food and fluids flow into the esophagus. At the same time, the epiglottis is a lid-like structure located at the base of the tongue, swings downward and closes off the laryngopharynx so that food does not enter the trachea and the lungs. And lastly, the larynx, also known as the voice box, is a triangular chamber located between the pharynx and the trachea. The larynx is protected and supported by a series of 9 spread cartilage. That's all from me for upper respiratory tract.
Now, I will be explaining the lower respiratory tract anatomy, which consists of the trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and lungs. Firstly, the trachea or windpipe is a hollow tube-like structure that runs from the rings or voice box to the bronchi, which connect the trachea to the lungs. It is located directly in front of the esophagus. The trachea is held open by a series of flexible C-shaped cartilage rings, allowing it to compress so food can pass down the esophagus. Secondly, the bronchi. The bronchi are two large tubes, also called primary bronchi, that branch from the trachea and convey air into the lungs. This is called the bronchial tree due to its resemblance to an inverted tree. Inside the lungs, each primary bronchus divides into smaller branches, eventually forming bronchioles, the smallest branches of the bronchi. Thirdly, the alveoli or ascents are tiny grape-like clusters found at the end of each bronchiole. These are the sites of oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. Each lung contains millions of alveoli. Last but not least, the lungs, essential organs of respiration, are divided into lobes. A lobe is a subdivision or part of an organ. The right lung is larger and has three lobes, which is the upper, middle, and lower, or superior, middle, and inferior. The left lung has only two lobes, the upper and lower. This is due to the heart's placement on that side of the body.
Explain the physiology of the upper respiratory tract. For your information, the function of the upper respiratory tract is involved in congestion or the movement of air into and out of the body. The upper respiratory tract represents a critical part of the respiratory system that plays a vital role in the process of respiration. It includes the nasal cavity, the pharynx, and the larynx, and it is responsible for various functions like filtering, warming, and humidifying the air we breathe in. Now I will explain the nasal cavity. What is the nasal cavity? The nasal cavity is large alveolar space in the skull, above and behind the nose, in the middle of the face. It is the continuation of two nostrils as inhaled airflow through the nasal cavity. It is formed by blood vessels very close to the surface of the epithelial tissue, hair in the nose, and mucus produced by the mucous membrane have to treat foreign particles in the air before they go deeper into the respiratory tracts. In addition to its respiratory function, the nasal cavity also contains chemoreceptors needed for the sense of smell. Next, the pharynx is a tubeless structure that connects with the nasal cavity and the back of the mouth to the other structure lower in the tract, including the larynx. The pharynx functions as a passageway for air from the nasal cavity through the pharynx to the larynx, and as well as in the opposite direction, while the food passes from the mouth through the pharynx and passes to the esophagus. Last but not least, I will explain about the larynx. The larynx connects with the pharynx and trachea and help to conduct air through the respiratory tract. The larynx is called the voice box because it contains the vocal cord, which vibrate and produce sound when air passes through them. The larynx also has a critical safety function. A small leaf-shaped flap of cartilage called the epiglottis covers the larynx during swallowing, preventing food or liquid from entering the lungs. It is noteworthy that the upper respiratory tract also plays a critical role in human speech production. The manipulation of airflow through the tract along the movement of the tongue and lips allow us to produce an array of sound and words. Muscles also control the pitch of sound and help maintain their volume.
The lungs are part of the lower respiratory tract and consist of the trachea, bronchi and bronchioles, and the alveoli. This structure absorbs oxygen from the air inhaled by the upper respiratory system and release carbon dioxide. The trachea is a cartilaginous ring tube less than an inch in diameter. It descended behind the sternum from the base of the larynx until it split into the bronchi, smaller tubes. Air warm and filtered by the upper respiratory system travel through the pharynx and the larynx, the trachea, the bronchi, and the lungs during inhalation. During exhalation, the trachea returns the deoxygenated air from the lungs. The tracheal tube is supported by cartilaginous ring, which keep it from collapsing or overexpanding as happens when the person sucks on a straw too forcefully. They have a gap on the back side and a C shape. The trachea base is where the tubes of the major bronchi split off. The secondary and tertiary bronchi, followed by the bronchioles, are additional division of these branches. From the trachea, oxygen-rich air is delivered to the lungs through these increasingly narrow airways. Deoxygenated air, now abundant in carbon dioxide, exits the lungs along the opposite pathway during exhalation. The bronchioles enlarge as we exercise because the smooth muscle in them relax. The bronchioles support the small air sacs known as alveoli. Each lung has hundreds of millions of alveoli. The terminal ends of the respiratory tract are the location of the external respiration or the exchange of gases between the air and the bloodstream. The bronchioles supply air to the alveoli during inhaling. Oxygen is pushed through the circulation after diffusing into the pulmonary capillaries networks surrounding the alveoli. Deoxygenated blood, carbon dioxide, diffuses into the alveoli from the capillaries and is released during expiration. The lungs handle the exchange of gases between our bodies and the air we breathe. The thoracic cage provides them with protection. The left lung has two lobes and a lower capacity than the right lung. It curls in at the cardiac notch to make room for the heart. There are three lobes in the right lung. The bronchi and bronchioles allows air to enter the lungs during inhalation. After entering the circulation, oxygen from the atmosphere travels through the alveoli, which are millions of tiny sacs, and into the surrounding capillaries. Waste carbon dioxide diffuses from the capillaries to the alveoli in the opposite direction. During exhalation, the lung releases deoxygenated air.
Let's take a look at the main structures involved in the respiratory system. The mediastinum is the middle sections of the chest cavity located between the two lungs. This area contains important organs and structures such as the heart, blood vessels, trachea, esophagus, bronchi, thymus gland, and lymph nodes. The mediastinum serves as the central area that houses these crucial elements and breathing and circulation. Pleura, which is a thin, moist membrane that covers the lungs and lines the thoracic cavity. It consists of two layers, which is the first one is the parietal pleura, is the outer layer of the pleura. It lines the wall of thoracic cavity, covers the diaphragm, and forms the sac that contain each lung. This layer is attached to the chest wall and is referred to as a parietal, which means relating to the walls of a cavity. The second one is the visceral pleura, which is the inner layer of the pleura that directly covers the lungs. This layer is attached to the lung themselves. The term visceral refers to internal organs. The pleural cavity, also called the pleural space, is the thin, fluid-filled space between the parietal and visceral pleura. The fluid within this space acts as a lubricant, allowing the pleural membrane to slide smoothly over each other during respiration, reducing friction as the lung expand and contract. Next, let's explore the diaphragm, also known as the thoracic diaphragm. This dome-shaped sheet of muscle separates the thoracic cavity from the abdomen. It is the contractions and relaxation of these muscles that makes breathing possible. Also, the phrenic nerves stimulate the diaphragm and cause it to contract. Now, let's turn our attention to respiration or breathing. Respiration is the exchange of oxygen to carbon dioxide, which is essential to life. A single respiration or breath consists of one inhalation and one exhalation. Let's explore the process of inhalation. Inhalation occurs when the diaphragm contracts and pulls downwards. This expansion of the thoracic cavity creates negative pressure within, which draws air into the lungs. This action is directly related to external respiration, as it is the process by which air from the external environment enters the lung, where oxygen is then exchanged for carbon dioxide. On the other hand, exhalation is the act of breathing out. As the diaphragm relaxes, it moves upward, narrowing the thoracic cavity and creates positive pressure that forces air out of the lungs. Subsequently, external respiration refers to the process of bringing air into and out of the lungs from the external environment. This exchange is essential for the intake of oxygen and the removal of carbon dioxide. As air is inhaled into the alveoli, oxygen immediately diffuses into surrounding capillaries, where it is carried by red blood cells, also known as erythrocytes. At the same time, carbon dioxide, the waste product of cellular metabolism, enters the bloodstreams and is transported to the air spaces of the lungs. This allows the body to expel the carbon dioxide efficiently during exhalation. In this way, inhalation and exhalation are key elements that enable external respiration to occur. Now, let's turn our attention to respiration or breathing. Respiration is the exchange of oxygen to carbon dioxide, which is essential to life. A single respiration or breath consists of one inhalation and one exhalation. Let's explore the process of inhalation. Inhalation occurs when the diaphragm contracts and pulls downwards. This expansion of the thoracic cavity creates negative pressure within. Moving forward, internal respiration or cellular respiration takes place within the cells and involve the exchange of gases between the bloodstream and the tissues. Here, oxygen, which has been delivered by the bloodstreams, moves from capillaries into the cells. As the cells carry out metabolic processes, they produce carbon dioxide as a byproduct. This carbon dioxide then diffuses from the cells into the bloodstreams, where it is transported back to the lungs. In the lungs, the carbon dioxide is expelled during exhalation. Together, external and internal respiration work in unison to ensure that oxygen reaches the tissues and carbon dioxide is effectively removed from the body. That's all from our group, and we hope you now have a better understanding of respiratory system and its vital function.